I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, honestly. My name's Jason, and I've been married to Emily for about 5 years now. We met in college, and at first everything seemed perfect. She was smart, funny, and a little bit bitchy, which I liked. She had this attitude that made her stand out, but she could be sweet too. We got married pretty young, and for a while things were good, or so I thought. Lately, though, I started noticing stuff that didn't sit right. Small things at first. She'd be a little more distant when I got home from work, wouldn't kiss me goodbye in the mornings like she used to. I'd catch her sneaking her phone away when she thought I wasn't looking. Little lies here and there. I remember one night, I asked her where she was going, and she snapped back with some bullshit excuse about a gym session. But I knew she was lying because she'd never been into gyms, and her phone was acting weird, locking her apps when I walked past. It wasn't just her behavior. Her attitude turned a bit bitchy too. She'd get annoyed if I asked her about her day and would dismiss me with some dry, sarcastic remark. I remember catching her in a lie about staying late at work, only to find out she'd been out with some guy from her office. That's when I started to get suspicious. I didn't want to admit it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Still, I told myself I was overreacting, maybe paranoid because I loved her. But the signs kept piling up. I found missed calls from unknown numbers, and her stories about where she'd been never matched up with the facts I dug up later. She'd come home smelling of perfume I didn't recognize, and her phone's screen kept lighting up with messages from an unknown contact. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but deep down, I knew something was going on. Still, I kept quiet, waiting for the right moment, or maybe hoping I'd be wrong. I mean, nobody wants to think their wife is sneaking around behind their back, but the gut feeling just wouldn't go away. One night, I decided I'd had enough of the lies and the suspicion. I couldn't sleep, so I stayed up and started going through her phone when she was in the bathroom. I know, it's invasive, but I was desperate for answers. What I found made my stomach drop. There were messages, dozens of them, with a guy named Jake. They weren't just friendly texts, they were flirty, full of innuendos and talking about meeting up. The way they talked about sex was explicit, and I could see she was definitely cheating. It hit me hard. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak all at once. I never thought Emily, my wife, the woman I trusted, would do something like this. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands trembling. I had no idea what to do next. All those years I thought we were solid, but she was out there lying, sneaking around, lying about her feelings, her actions. It was like a punch to the gut. The worst part, I knew she'd lied about everything. Her late nights, her supposed work trips, even our intimacy, which I now realized was probably fake or at least superficial for her. I waited until she was asleep, then I quietly snuck into the living room and sat there in the dark. The betrayal was so raw it almost felt physical. I kept asking myself, how did it get here? How did she become this person who could cheat, lie, and act like she didn't care? I thought I knew her, but now I was questioning everything I'd ever believed. I felt a strange mixture of rage and sadness. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I needed to be smart about it. I had to think through my next move. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I saw, wondering if this was just a phase or if it was something more permanent. The idea of her with Jake, lying beside me day after day, made me sick. And yet I was also hurt that she could do this and still pretend everything was normal. I felt so stupid for not seeing the signs sooner. How blind I'd been. All those little moments, the subtle changes, I missed the clues because I didn't want to believe it. Now I knew the truth, and I was furious. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. My mind was racing, trying to process everything I'd uncovered. I knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. I had to confront her, but I also knew it would be explosive. I spent the day debating whether I should just come clean with her or catch her off guard. By the time she got home from work, I was already waiting in the living room, feeling like a ticking time bomb. When she walked in, she looked annoyed, the usual bitchy attitude on her face. I didn't waste time. I pulled out her phone and showed her the messages. Her expression changed instantly, her eyes widened, and she tried to snatch the phone away, but I held firm. "Who's Jake?" I demanded, voice trembling but firm. She looked at me, her face twisting into a mixture of irritation and surprise, then quickly shifted to a defiant sneer. "Oh, come on, Jason. It's just sex. What's the big deal? You're overreacting." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had the nerve to brush it off like it was nothing. I felt a surge of anger. Just sex. That's what you call sneaking around for months, lying to my face, pretending everything's fine. I felt my fists tighten. How long has this been going on? How many times? She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "You're so insecure. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. It's just a bit of fun, Jason. You're so boring lately. Maybe you should try to spice things up instead of accusing me of crap." Her words hit me like a punch. She was so dismissive, so condescending, like I was the one in the wrong for catching her. I was shaking with rage, but I also felt crushed. It was like my world was collapsing. I asked her straight up if she loved this guy. She shrugged, smirking. "Honestly, I don't know. It's complicated. Sex with him is better than with you, that's for sure. You're not exactly the best in bed anymore, are you?" That was it. That was the last straw. My blood boiled. She kept lying, telling me it was just sex, that she didn't mean for it to get serious. But I knew better. She'd crossed every line. I told her I wanted her out, that I couldn't handle this betrayal anymore. She just looked at me, unbothered, and said she'd think about it. There was no remorse, no apology, just this bitchy smirk on her face, like she was proud of herself for messing with my head. I felt my heart pounding. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat there, staring at the ceiling, feeling a mixture of shock, heartbreak, and pure fury. I knew I had to make a decision, and fast. The days that followed were a blur of anger and confusion. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't eat properly. Every time I saw her, I saw the lies she told, the sneers, the way she dismissed everything I said. I kept replaying that night, trying to understand how I missed all the signs. But more than anything, I was furious. Not just at her, but at myself for trusting her so blindly. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? One evening, I came home early, hoping to catch her in the act or at least get some answers. I wanted to see if she'd try to hide anything. As I walked in, I caught her on her phone again, whispering, her voice husky, secretive. She froze the second she saw me and quickly tried to hide her phone behind her back, but I already saw enough. I grabbed her wrist and yanked her away from the screen. "Who were you texting just now?" I demanded, voice low but angry. She looked at me, eyes flashing with defiance. "You really want to know? Fine, it's Jake. I'm seeing him. I'm done pretending, Jason. Honestly, I don't even care if you're mad. I've had enough of your bullshit. You're boring, and I needed something more exciting." Her words hit me like a slap, that cold, bitchy tone. She looked at me like I was nothing. I couldn't believe how cavalier she was about it. That was when I knew I had to do something drastic. I told her she was out, no more thinking about it, no more excuses. I packed her bags that night, feeling like I was tearing my own heart apart. While she packed, she kept throwing insults, calling me insecure, pathetic, telling me I was ruining her life. But I didn't care. I felt a strange mixture of relief and devastation. I wanted her gone, but part of me was shattered beyond repair. That night, I watched her walk out the door, her high heels clicking on the floor, her bitchy smirk still plastered on her face. As she left, I realized I'd just lost someone I loved, someone I thought was my soulmate. But I also knew that staying with her would have meant accepting betrayal on a level I never imagined. I felt hollow, but I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I'd taken control, even if it was in the most painful way possible. It was a wake-up call I needed, I guess, even if it hurt like hell. The days after she left were the hardest I've ever experienced. The apartment felt so empty without her bitchy comments and that smug smirk she always wore when she thought she was getting away with something. It was like her presence still lingered in every corner, in every damn thing. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even a strange sense of freedom, but mostly I just felt hollow. The betrayal cut so deep, I didn't even know who I was anymore. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her sneers, the way she dismissed my feelings like they were nothing. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for believing she was the woman I married. But as the shock wore off, something else started to happen, a kind of clarity. I realized that I'd been putting up with her bullshit for too long. The little insults, the sneaky lies, the way she'd belittled me in front of her friends. My self-esteem had taken a hit, and I'd allowed it. Now I was finally awake to how toxic she had become. I started to see that I deserved better, that I was worth someone who wouldn't cheat and lie and treat me like I was disposable. I knew I had to focus on myself, rebuild what was broken. I threw myself into work, started exercising again, and spent a lot of time talking to friends. They told me I was better off without her, that I deserved someone who actually loved me, not someone who played me for a fool. Still, the pain lingered. I'd look at my phone, expecting a message from her, hoping she'd come back and admit she was wrong. But she never did. Instead, I got silence. Nothing but memories and the sting of betrayal. One night, I sat in my living room, staring at her empty side of the bed, feeling a strange mix of anger and loss. I realized I'd been holding on to this hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd change her mind, that somehow we could fix this. But deep down, I knew that was a fantasy. You can't fix a relationship built on lies and betrayal. I had to accept that she was gone for good, that I was starting over, alone but hopefully stronger. I promised myself not to make the same mistake again, to trust blindly, to ignore the red flags. I'd learned my lesson the hard way. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that teach you your worth. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I was just broken, angry, hurt, feeling like a complete idiot for trusting her. But eventually, I started to see it as a wake-up call. A brutal reminder that sometimes the people closest to you can betray you in the worst ways, but you have to pick yourself up afterward. I learned to value myself more, to see my worth beyond someone who could so easily toss me aside for a quick thrill. That betrayal pushed me to reevaluate what I want in life and in a partner. I refuse to settle for someone who lies, cheats, and manipulates. I now understand that true respect and honesty are what really matter. I also learned how important it is to listen to my gut, those small signs I ignored before, the little red flags that I dismissed because I didn't want to believe the worst. Ignorance may have been bliss, but it only delayed the inevitable. Facing the truth, no matter how ugly, was the only way to move forward. Since then, I've focused on healing, on rebuilding my confidence, on rediscovering who I am outside of that toxic relationship. I cut out all the toxic people from my life who enabled her or told me to just give her time. I blocked her number, deleted her from social media, and refused to dwell on what could have been. Instead, I started doing things I love: hiking, working out, reconnecting with old friends. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again. Not perfect, but better, stronger. The biggest lesson I've learned is that betrayal isn't the end, it's just a new beginning. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to find the strength to rise. I won't say it's easy, and I still have days where I feel the sting of betrayal deep in my chest. But I know now that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if someone betrays that, I'll cut them loose, no matter how much it hurts. Because in the end, trusting yourself and knowing your worth is what will carry you through the hardest times. And I've finally started to do that.